Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. So, Eric, Ellen, Tracy, we've done these many, many, many times. Later today, tomorrow, you're talking to a colleague, somebody you know very well, knows the industry inside and out, keenly interested in innovation. What would you tell, short and sweet, was your biggest takeaway, the thing you like best from the 10 presentations? And what would you say just made you roll your eyes? Maybe we'll just do it short and then we'll dig into them.
Well, certainly the trend towards everything being contactless, right? I thought it's not surprising and was really interesting. And then, I have to say that another subscription-based travel booking opportunity made me roll my eyes.
Yeah. The thing with contact, it's funny how the expression high touch in hospitality was a coveted descriptor. And overnight, high touch went from A plus to an F. Yeah. I'll tell you in a minute, but another subscription model wasn't my low point, but almost. Tracy or Eric?
I don't know that anything really made me roll my eyes. Maybe what made my eyes boldly pop out of my head was the true face and the degree to which I don't know if everyone realizes when we're opting into certain programs what all you're opting into with the advancement in technology, and I think that was made clear there. For me, I think one of the surprises was also the diversity of things. We had, the carbon cancellation, which has been around forever. We had things based on mobile phone subscription model. So I was a little surprised with the diversity in some areas that have been around for a while.
Yeah. It's interesting about when you opt in, you don't know what you're signing up for. I heard somebody the other day said that if Facebook launched now and people realized what was going on, that it probably would not be a mega once in a century success. It's interesting. Because nobody realized early on all the private stuff they were dumping in for free and how it would be spit out. Yeah. Eric, best, worst?
They did.
They did. He always does, Zuckerberg. That's the thing.
My takeaway here is, it's kind of cool. It's optimism, right? And it's pretty clear. The underlying thesis that we're not talking about is that travel's going to come back. And, regardless of what you think about the different approaches here, it's pretty clear that there's massive kind of energy, enthusiasm in the comeback of the travel market overall. Now we can debate about, what year, like, are we fully back next year, the year after? But, it reminds me so much of post 9/11 when everybody sort of sat there and said, what's going to happen? And, Barry Diller sort of famously said, hey, look, if there's life, there's travel.
Yeah, remember everybody's the only time at the Focusrite conference in history where somebody sat on stage and everybody in the audience stood up and applauded.
Yeah, I mean, it was great, Barry's got a way of sort of cutting to the chase, right? And it feels like that's what we saw today. We saw entrepreneurs who could, let's face it, they could pick anything in the world to work on, right? They don't have to work on travel. They could work on fintech or, any other thing. And they've decided that this is going to be worth it because we're coming back. And so I got to say, I liked some more than others because of personal preference, but my overall takeaway was, isn't it great that we've still got the energy going into the industry and that people feel like we're coming back, baby, we're coming back, and we all know it.
Yeah. And did anything make you roll your eyes?
Roll my eyes? No, but Philip, I'm not a roll your eyes kind of guy. There were a couple of things that I sort of thought might be better off inside of a bigger organization. I think, check-in I thought was a really interesting, good idea, but maybe should be a little closer, sort of partnered up with PMS and maybe even should be inside a PMS company. Doesn't make it a bad idea. It just, perhaps the resources there for distribution might be better placed somewhere else.
That was the big problem I had with Be Right Back. It just, when you use the word littered, I thought you were going to say the landscape is littered with trip planning companies, and Be Right Back just sounded like another trip planning company. I can't even hardly listen anymore, but you never know. For me, it's just one of the categories when we score of the 6 is the potential to create breakthrough value in the industry. And I like that one is something we can really vote on because we can't put the quality of the management team, et cetera, is. And I was saying if Alice at Kite really is successful, I don't know if the word is teaching or empowering, whatever the word is, airlines to be significantly better retailers and leveraging NDC for one of its allegedly biggest promises. I thought that could be a big breakthrough. And it's in the air category, which usually doesn't get me that excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and taking, I think, an innovative approach in her business model, right? Via a subscription rather than a transaction fee, which definitely makes it more airline friendly. One of the challenges, I think, though, right now is when you think about running an airline with greatly reduced staff and generating more revenue is really high on the priority list, but streamlining costs, I think, is higher. So always hard to sell to airlines, but I think what she's doing is really interesting.
And Ellen, why do you think subscription business models have been just so difficult to stick in travel, tourism, and hospitality? They sure have no problem sticking anywhere else.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Because the subscription model is a great model. It drives high valuations, so for exits. And I don't really understand why it's been more of a challenge in travel.
Yeah. Anybody else on that?
I think there's a difference in the because we saw 2 subscription models, obviously, Kite, that's the B2B subscription model. And then we saw the other in the B2C sort of subscription model of travel. Do you think there's a different application there, Ellen?
Yeah, I just think the subscription model for B2C is crazy. I just don't get it. I don't think it makes any sense. I think it's such a small portion of the population that's interested in that. So the market size, I think, is really small. But because subscription model to me in a B2B environment is absolutely the right model.
Yeah.
No, I was on the board at SiteMinder for years and years. So we can talk about it, but the B2B subscription there. Listen, a lot of hotels want to understand what their cost is going to be, right? I mean, it just makes perfect sense. You don't have it sort of tied to what your revenue is going to be. Whereas I agree with Ellen. I mean, consumers, look, especially leisure travel, it's a pretty low frequency thing. And so paying a monthly fee for something that you don't know if you're even going to do it 2 or 3 times a year, I have trouble with that.
Yeah. I think that's the issue is that, it's one thing for Amazon Prime shipping membership because of the super high frequency, but even what's considered frequent in the industry, like people like us that lived on an airplane for decades, is infrequent. I bet you if you look across other industries in terms of repeat purchasing patterns.
Yeah, and you pay $15 a month for Netflix, which you use, multiple times a week probably, and 50 pounds for 3 trips a year. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah, now I might pay $20 a month so TrueFace, can't see me.
Well,
there is a model there, though, Eric. Sincerely, I've heard several people. I'll pay for you to not know me.
That blue wig finally has a new value all these years later. Hey, can you tell everybody our blue wig story? I'm trying to think, what was that the same year? No.
Blue wig story. It was way back when I dyed my hair blue because Expedia. I love that you're giving me this tee up, Philip, because Expedia finally gained some market share on Travelocity. That's the old days.
But what was the challenge you presented to all the employees?
It was.
By the way, for people in the audience that don't know, Eric was CEO of Expedia back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, at the time I was actually the CMO. Rich Barton was the CEO. It was just simply like, could we gain share on Travelocity? They were the big bad wolf. And through a combination of tactics, we managed to do that. Had a lot to do with a massive giveaway sweepstakes to Vegas, and tied back to our strategy coming out of 9/11. It's not worth telling the story, but I certainly ended up with blue hair. It was good.
With all the companies you're familiar with now, both commercially, Tracy, and maybe more advisory, Eric and Ellen, what are some examples of glowing exceptions, companies doing well in an otherwise terrible time?
Well, I mean, I could go if you want. I mean,
That sort of answers the question.
Yeah.
no. There's companies. No, there's companies that are cranking it, man. I mean, there's some stuff going well. I don't want to sort of talk my book, as it were, because I don't think that's what this is about. But TCV is an investor in Airbnb, and all of us know the company. And I think the idea that they're providing a really valuable service within drive distance of metro areas, people want to get away. People are look, there's two things going on right now, right? You've got people who are a bit scared because of their health, and you've got people who are feeling nervous because of their economics. And those two things line up perfectly for, hey, we got to get away. Let's drive, because it's fairly cheap, away from the city where everybody is, and we're scared about getting, corona. And so I think Airbnb's and VRBO too. Listen, I think everybody is in that world.
The thing I like about the Airbnb story, it's not just, oh, they're offering places to go, to get away and feel safe. They had to execute a swift, difficult pivot to get there. And they did, because you say what you want. Pre-March 15th, Airbnb's business was inextricably linked with urban centers. If you looked at the heat map. And people asked me, like what are you seeing? I said, this is like the most challenging times for executive leadership, and some get it and most don't. And the ability to rapidly and swiftly pivot and execute on that is to me even more brilliant than what they pivoted to, because lots of companies know what they're supposed to do. They just can't act like what they're supposed to do. I think years from now, we're going to talk about fundamental changes in executive leadership post-pandemic. That's just one of my favorite subjects. Ellen and Tracy, any other examples here?
Yeah, I would just say one of the things I like to joke is if you were successful in raising money before COVID, now's not the worst time to be a pre-revenue startup, right? Because you didn't take a big revenue hit because you're pre-revenue anyway. And this is giving people time to really push forward in product development and innovation. Excuse me, somebody else ought to talk while I clear my throat.
I'll jump in. One of the areas where I'm seeing kind of commercially a lot of advancement is specifically in the adoption of technology, outsourcing, really kind of going back for those companies that are determining, do I want to in-house and make technology my competitive differentiator, or do I want to outsource more of this? Whether it's, lock key, sort of keyless entry kind of adoption, or hotel PMS, CRS systems, outsourcing a lot more of that is things that we're seeing. We'll see what that actually amounts to, but certainly conversations have opened up with much bigger players than I think historically were in this space, as they've sort of reevaluated what is my core competency as I come out of it.
Another one up. Ellen, you back in action?
Yes, I am. I was just going to segue a little bit and say it was interesting what we saw. And I also thought it was interesting the categories that we didn't see. So, aggregation of health kind of data, perhaps to facilitate return to travel. The dramatic need that TMCs have to digitize their whole customer service structure, TMCs, OTAs. The fact that, when you think about airline revenue management and forecasting based on historical trends, that data is out the window. And so companies helping kind of try and think about forecasting in this new world. So there were some categories that I thought were interesting that we didn't see anybody in. And I'm sure there were others that people probably would think of too.
One of my favorite.
Can I steal the mic for a sec?
Sort of.
Can I steal the mic?
Here you go.
What do you guys think is going to happen? for Thanksgiving in the US.
The biggest travel week in the US yet. And then we will see a surge in cases in December,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I hope you're
When
wrong.
you
but
say,
you're right.
I think a lot of people are, that might be true because the biggest travel day since March 15th, wouldn't
Not saying
say that much, would say. But Eric, I think part two is, I know personally, we've had this big traditional Thanksgiving I've done for 37 years and took me a little while, but it's canceled and there's gonna be a lot of cancellations and some people be upset. And then there's the old flip side of sitting around with a smaller group or just you and your significant other or whatever and saying, this is kind of nice. So I think there's a lot of answers to that. Canadian Thanksgiving is in October though, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
not that Christmas is the thing in Canada, and I think we're all feeling the same way. I'm just curious.
Going back to the automation though, it's like I've developed a collection of litmus test questions I ask companies now to just gauge how they're doing. I shared earlier about why I like the market share question, even though it doesn't pay all the bills. Another one is I ask them, tell me about which projects, big projects you've undertaken on automation and process efficiency. And using, everyone always said that the reason they couldn't do anything, like the CEO of Visergy did a nice job talking about how great travel was going, white hot, he said. So I ask companies, now that you can't use no bandwidth what kind of automation projects and innovation projects have you started and completed? And if I get a very short, thin answer, no matter what else they say, I'm very worried about that company. And other companies, they just love that question. They go on and on. We did this, we did this, we did this. Like Hopper, completely automated refunds and changes. Every single thing I'm not really aware of. And they just went ballistic, obsessive on it. So that's part of what I was saying. And I was just wondering if you've seen anything like this that squares with what I'm trying to describe.
I would say it's one of the things that really concerns me in sort of the corporate travel world is the opposite, is just the fact that I don't see it happening, right? To me, this is the time to be implementing technology to get all those agents out of the business. And they don't have the money. That's one of the challenges, but I don't see it as a priority and it surprises me.
I'd say
Yeah, it's
from the supply side, like RFIs, review of technology, request for information, potentially to outsource through the roof. I'm seeing a ton of inquiry there. What I'm not yet seeing is a commitment on timeline, conversion of those RFIs to RFPs and closed contracts. So a lot of talk, a lot of movement. Are on the supply side, are they ready to actually make the plunge? I think we need a little bit more time to tell. On the demand side, I totally agree with you, Ellen, particularly in corporate. I've actually was doing some kind of executive sessions recently, and one of them said, the only thing I have left to hold on to is the fact that I personally talk to you. If you automate that last thing of value I bring, what is my value? And I thought that was really telling to their perspective on how they saw this. So I think the other piece on the conversations around it, those who are leaning in, even when companies that I've seen doing a lot of RIFs, if you actually dig into where they're doing the reduction in force, they're typically not hitting their development and their product teams. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very telling. If you dive deeper into where that is, those big tech companies aren't hitting it.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I have to say, just to write on what Tracy was saying. So, a good example would be TourRadar. They almost have completely automated the tour operator sign-up flow. So they don't need to be cold calling, getting people in the system anymore. And that's made a huge difference to their business. And I think you're probably seeing that all over the place. I mean, I'm not an investor, but I imagine Peak is doing really well. Just operators looking for a platform so they don't have to have people doing the work that computers can do.
Cadence is another word I'm hearing a lot more often. Like, for example, a couple of years ago, if I asked a CEO, which I've interviewed a few in my day, what's, your top 2 or 3 priorities, you used to get pretty typical answers. Now I'm getting cadence. In other words, I see my job as CEO is to keep cracking the whip and to keep the speed up, especially in terms of shipping product and engaging with customers as a way relates to that market share thing before, so that when things operationally normalize, you just have built a significant competitive advantage. Or are you seeing a lot of speed related issues, management priorities, or not much change there?
That doesn't really square with, no, I'm just being honest with you. What I see more of is, companies, especially, smaller companies saying, let's take the time to build up our lead list. Let's make sure that when travel comes back, we've got people to talk to and to offer stuff to. But I think people have reoriented their priorities to a kind of a wait and see, and making sure that when things do come back, because we all know they're going to come back pretty quick, right? We're travel, we go bang. And I've seen more kind of preparation than I have seen
Right.
quick.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that, Eric. Very much focus on what can we do to help our customers be ready for when travel comes back. And also I've seen companies when they had to do the significant downsizing earlier this year, to take that as an opportunity to really reassess their strategy and where should we be focusing our resources. We obviously have to reduce resources, so let's make sure we're putting them in the right areas and streamlining focus.
One of my favorites, so I mentor 4 young female CEOs in the travel industry. Hello, Julia, Trisha, Lillian, and Tara. Shout out to you guys. And it was so heartwarming. Well, in the beginning, they hated me in March. But Eric, to your point about what some of us learned after 9/11, I got them. They were done cutting by the end of March, practically, when most companies hadn't even gotten around to it. And then they started to warm up to me. And I love some of the things they did in this time that they couldn't do before. I'll just give an example of a small boutique and innovative tour operator focusing on younger people, had a whole bunch of suppliers all over the world that they always wanted to do business with, but they never gave them the time of day. So she contacted everyone in the world that she ever wanted to do business with, hotels, restaurants, all this stuff. And you know what happened? Every single one of them immediately got back to her. She built up a database. So these are great, great little stories that kept me going. I am trying to see where our. Okay, 1.5 minutes left. If you put a different, say, consultant or board member hat back on and were to give these 10 startups some advice, and you could push beyond the cliche, what might you tell them right now? Well, I loved your observation, Eric, to keep the faith. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I would say. I would say, yeah, I mean, it's keep the faith while recognizing that things are going to be different. I think we all see that. My perch is different from Ellen and Tracy's, but certainly from my point of view, I'd say keep the faith. We're coming back, but I don't think it's going to be the same as it ever was. I mean, I don't think business travel is going to look the same. So keep the faith, but flex with the times.
Ellen, Tracy, any more pearls of wisdom?
I think for me, it's you've got limited funds, limited capacity in people, and short attention spans, and sort of an exhausted group of people you're talking to. So get to the point quick, make it real, make it relevant, and give me clear line of sight, because I think that was missing a bit. To the point that we've said this whole time, it's different times. It's going to come back different. And right now, it's so much easier to say no than yes. So you've got to make it really clear, really crisp, and really quick to get me out of that mindset.
Ellen?
Yeah,
last
I
one.
just say, focus, prioritize, and wow, keep your pulse on your employees. Be crystal clear about what your strategy is, over communicate, and keep everybody connected.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tracy Mercer, Alan Kessler, and Eric Botchford, thank you all very much. Until the next time.
Thanks, Philip.
Thank you,
you.
Philip.
So thank you very much to our dragons. Again, Philip, Tracy, Ellen, and Eric, a job very well done. So before we get into our awards here, I want to just give a quick thanks and shout out to our patrons of innovation. So thanks for all the support from American Express GBT, in particular, Evan Conweiser, who helped support the Young Leaders Summit and a lot of other things we do here at Focusrite. So thanks, Evan, and your team. I also wanted to give a quick thanks to Travel Tech Leaders. So Travel Tech Nations Leaders is a private network of leading entrepreneurs, influencers, general managers, and travel tech executives. Focusrite is pleased to partner with Travel Tech Nations Leaders, and the members of this community will gain access to travel industry icons. They'll forge deep connections through physical and virtual events, one-on-one meetings, and industry research and data. So anybody that's interested in being considered for this private network, you can go to ttnl.app and put in your email address there and apply. So without further ado, let's transition here to the awards.